Hi, this is Jim Lawson for Bourns Pro Audio. I'm here in the Bourns Pro Audio lab. We're doing a series of application videos to help explain and show some of the applications we have in our expanding line of Pro Audio products. Today we have an application that we're going to share with you that is specific to well, actually I'm going to use my own instrument. This is a 1971 Fender Jazz Bass that it was standard hookup, was there all the time, and if anyone knows what a jazz bass hookup is, you typically have a volume control for each pickup, and then you have a tone control. Today we're going to be making a real simple modification to that hookup. We're going to use a Bourns PDB182-GTRB. It is our premier blend balance potentiometer. We're going to use that in this configuration so that I have the ability now to pan between the bridge pickup and the neck pickup in any shape, size of mix I want. We'll keep the one original volume control, and that will become a master volume, and we'll leave the tone control there too. At the same time, I'm putting this blend balance control in, the PDB182. I'm going to be upgrading the potentiometers that were in this guitar to Bourns Model 82 vintage guitar potentiometers. And we'll show you a little bit in detail here of what I've done up to this point already to prepare for this upgrade. Okay, so you can see that I have removed the hardware plate that holds the potentiometers and the input jack for this guitar. I've taken that off, and inside this cavity you'll see that as manufactured, the manufacturer actually provided a shielding plate down here in the bottom. This is probably some kind of brass. It also serves as a point where any wires that are entering in here that need to be in the ground system, we can we actually see where they're grounded there. Yeah, this wire certainly goes to the bridge of the guitar. And while we're talking about ground, earlier we talked about the entire loop of ground and where things come from and where things should go. In addition to the ground entering the guitar at this input jack here and running through this electrical circuitry, in order to keep the guitar quiet, we also need to make sure that all of this part of the guitar is part of the ground circuit. So in the case of this particular instrument, we have this wire here, which is to the shield, is running into the body, and it comes out and it's actually been put underneath this bridge. So we're now electrically connecting the bridge to ground through this wire, which will go to the shield, and then this will all become part of the entire ground in here. Once the bridge is grounded, now by default, because our strings are metal as well, the strings become part of the ground. So now everything is ground. If we keep the ground circuit all connected and it's quiet, all that will come through these pickups is what's being picked up from the string vibration. No noise, no hum, and when you get done with these modifications, if you find that you hear some hum or noise, you need to go back in and check your connections again using the sheet that you're referencing from. And in this particular case, in this guitar, we're using this is off of the Bourns application note for the blend balance pot for bass guitars. We have the hookup drawing here, which is the courtesy of Seymour Duncan, and this is what we're going to show you today and how things are hooked up. So again, if you have any buzz or hum when you're done with this, you need to go back and recheck your connections. I've actually made some markings on this. I've made notes of the terminals of the potentiometers for my own edification, make sure that I don't hook this up differently. And but let's finish up here. Let's show you what we're doing here. So I'm following this, and we've talked about the shielding and all that. So let's just look at so far what I've done. So I've already installed the 1/4" jack, and I've installed one of our Model 82 vintage guitar potentiometers. And you'll notice that this particular potentiometer has a plane shaft, and that plane shaft is meant for knobs such as this, which actually are affixed with a set screw. So when I put the knob on, it actually will be at a height that is does not look terrible because it's too far off the hardware plate, and it's not so close that it's actually scraping when we're turning the pot. So that's all done ahead of time. Some other things I did ahead of time on this particular job here is I've actually installed the tone capacitor. This is going to be part of the tone control. I've also pre-wired the blend balance control. So this is the Bourns PDB182-GTRB, and I made just a couple of connections here ahead of time, with the rest of the connections being wires that are going to be coming off of other parts, either from the pickups, ground, or in between one potentiometer and the other, just so that I don't have to work on the guitar with these little tiny wires. I've done all this work ahead of time. Okay, let's talk a little bit about solder lugs. Now, the Model 82 vintage guitar potentiometer is very similar to the Bourns Model 95 in as much as this is a conductive plastic element inside here as opposed to carbon, and this is a plastic housing. Now, the Model 95s are black and they do have a plastic back on it as well. The Model 82 happens to have a metal back on it, but this is not a surface you should be soldering to. It won't take solder, it actually will damage the device. So what we've done to circumvent that and provide a place for ground connections is we provide a solder lug with the product. So those solder lugs would get put on as part of this assembly process. And back over here on this potentiometer you can see that I've done just that. There's two lugs that I put on here, the nut, which helps me set the distance that this potentiometer protrudes through this hardware plate, and then I've got connections already started here. This particular solder lug provides a ground connection for the bushing of the potentiometer. It's going to give me a place to solder other ground connections too. And in the case of this particular jazz bass, this turns out to be metal, and this could be my ground plane, but I'm going to make sure I can't really solder to this. So I've got to have these lugs all along and places to solder things to. So the whole point is you cannot solder to the back of this Model 82 any more than you can solder to the back of a Model 95 guitar potentiometer, which is plastic in the back. You use the solder tabs that we provide. So I've done this. This is my ground connection now, which I'm using a shielded cable here, which I recommend you use at least for this very last part of the signal leaving the guitar. And that's going to help prevent noise and hum from being introduced at this point from some outside source. Now, here's an important thing. This particular model of blend balance pot, if you look, you will see this little tab here. And this particular tab is put here should you have an application where you would like this potentiometer to be held even more than just a nut on the bushing. So this is called as a anti-rotation lug. Now in the case of this application, this is going to go onto this hardware plate, and you see that there is no place for this anti-rotation lug to lock into. If I wanted to use that, I would have to drill a hole exactly where I wanted to. So in the case of guitars, almost never going to need this, and I want to show you how to take this off without damaging the pot. Take a pair of side cutters and just kind of work it back and forth until it comes off and there's no damage done. So now I've got a flat surface here, and it's going to be very happy to just mount right in here. So now we're going to start with a nut. This is going to allow me to adjust how much this protrudes from the front, so I can get that height just right. I'm going to take a solder lug, and I put this solder lug on here, and I'm going to face it to the back of the potentiometer, so when it's sitting here, I've got it, it's sticking up, and I can get access to it and get a wire to it, as opposed to the other way around. And at this point I'm going to try a lock washer so that it doesn't turn too much once I get it locked down. And I'm going to see how this works out when I put it through here. And if you look, that's roughly the same height as the one I've already put in and adjusted to the right height for the knobs. So it looks like I'm happy with that physically. I'm going to go ahead and put this nut on here and go ahead and get it tightened down a little bit. I make sure that over here I've got this turned in the direction where I can work with it. And make sure that this cavity is deceivingly small, so we want to make sure that everything's lined up so it fits in here. So if I left it like that and I went to finish the job and put this hardware plate with all the electronics back on here, it wouldn't fit. So I got, in the case of this particular pot, we're going to have to do one of two things. It's either going to have to be like that, or it's going to have to be like that. And I think I'm going to make it like this, so we can make the rest of the connections. And then we're going to move that out of the way. And now that I've got this here, I'm happy with the physical location. We'll just go ahead and tighten this down a little bit. And you want to make sure that you don't over tighten this. 15 to 18 inch-pounds if you wanted to use a torque wrench on it. It's probably not that necessary that you go to that length, but you just want to make sure it's tight. Not too tight, we just don't want it to get loose on you. Now you find that this particular device, this PDB182-GTRB, is got a center detent. And the way this is going to work when I'm done is in the center point, this potentiometer is essentially out of the circuit. It's a short. So what happens is I have both my pickups will be on at the same time, at the same level. And the Model 82 Vintage, which is going to serve as a master volume when I get done with this, will be the control that turns my pickup volume up or down. If I turn the balance pot counterclockwise, if I'm following the circuit the way it's hooked up, what will happen is now as I go full counterclockwise, I will shut off the bridge pickup completely, and I will have this pickup on fully. Again, being able to control the overall volume with this master volume control. The closer I get back to the center, the lower the output from this pickup becomes and the higher output for this one comes. So I can get a variety of sound mix between the two with one control. Back to the center detent position, this is essentially out of the circuit. Now I've got both pickups going full blower with the master volume controlling the overall volume. And then in the other direction, the same exact thing happens. If I go full clockwise, now I've got this pickup completely off and this pickup completely on with the volume control to adjust the actual output level. And anywhere in between, now I've got more control of how much is coming out of this pickup, and in the previous example it was the other way around. So just one little change like this provides a completely different ability for getting different tones out of this particular guitar. So once you have all the wires soldered, you can plug your guitar in, try it out, and if it doesn't work, or if you got a little hum or something, you have to double check your connections against the drawing. Anything's repairable. Don't worry about it if it doesn't come out right the first time. If you take care and follow the schematics, you shouldn't have any worries. If you'd like a data sheet on any of these parts at all, you can find them on our website, bourns.com/pro audio. And other than that, any other application notes that you wish to find, you can peruse through there. You'll find lots of help, and you'll also find things such as identification and definitions of tapers of guitar pots, which we're not going to talk about today. But in any event, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for using our products. This is Jim Lawson for Bourns Pro Audio, wishing you happy playing.